Good evening. Welcome to the Human Rights Commission regular meeting. Today is Monday, January 13th, 2025, and it's 5 p.m. And I am calling this meeting to order. Let's do roll call, please.
Good evening, Chair Loyola,
Present.
Vice Chair Vignolo,
Present.
Commissioner Remus,
Present.
Commissioner Greer, Commissioner Horn, Commissioner Rinke, and let the record reflect that Commissioner Cleary is not present.
So we which is the acceptance of the agenda. We will discuss the order of the agenda and we might amend the order, the items, and may remove items from the agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
Move to accept the agenda.
Commissioner Rankin moves. Do I have a second on that motion? Commissioner Remus second. Is there any other discussion? Let's take a vote. Raise your hand, say aye, those in favor of accepting the agenda. We have consensus on the acceptance of the agenda. Item number 5 is the approval of minutes. And these are the meeting minutes of December 9, 2024. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of that meeting? Any, minutes?
I'll make the move.
Okay, Commissioner Vignolo, Vice Chair. The, a second? Okay, so Commissioner Horn seconds. Let's take a vote, please, to accept the minutes. Those in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
So unanimous as well. Thank you, sir. So item number 6, I'd like to welcome the commissioners back to this new year. Folks, I want to wish everyone a very successful and very productive year, everything you do. Thank you for volunteering for this commission. I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to think about all those people affected by the fires in Los Angeles. And to remind the public in Palm Springs watching this recording or the live, that the city of Palm Springs is open to welcome those affected by the fires in LA, and there are many resources available online and through our social media channels. So if you have the opportunity to open your phone and help those who have been affected, friends and family, please consider to do so. So welcome to the new year. We have a very packed agenda with a lot of discussion items, and I hope that we have done a lot of the reading in advance so that the conversation can be productive and healthy. If you need to refer to any of the discussion items, to any of the documents, please do so. Remember to open your mics when you're speaking so that can be recorded. It's public record, public consumption. If you need to turn your phones so that we will no distraction, please do that now. Commissioner Rinke, you have a question.
I see on the discussion item that the Community Service Awards is being discussed, but do we have, I don't see a copy attached of the amended.
I'll give you my copy. You can share it. This was inserted in the agenda packet. You may not have it, but it's in the agenda packet.
I don't think there is.
If it's not included there, I can run back. I did print it. I can run back to my office and pick it up.
Here. So I'm gonna ask both of you to lead the discussion. You guys worked on this project. So that's your work. Okay? Let's continue. Okay. Let's move on to item number 7. Time is 5 for public comments. Do we have any public comments?
There is one public comment, Dr. Jonathan Lorenzo Yorba.
Dr. Yorba, please come up here to that seat in the mic. Let me remind our commissioners and the public that this time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Human Rights Commission on agenda items
Good evening, Chair Loyola.
and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Although the commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any actions on items not listed on the posted agenda. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you so
Welcome,
much.
Dr. Eder.
Thanks again, Commissioner Loyola, Vice Chair Vignola, and Human Rights Commissioners. I think this is perhaps one of the most important commissions the city has. And I've been attending the past few meetings, and I'm glad that you're able to now get back to work. On behalf of the center, we want to thank you for all that you do, and hope that at some point you may consider my request for a letter of support to be sent to the Measure J Commission for our Measure J community initiated project. So that's my brief comments. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Dr. Eder. Thank you, Dr. Eder, for the public testimony. Any additional testimony? Online or?
I've received no further requests for public comment or testimony.
Thank you, Jeremy. So we're gonna move on to item number I, which is new business, and we have 3 items for new business, A, B, and C listed on the agenda. We're gonna begin a brief conversation discussion about item 8A, which is the calendar planning for 2025. And I'd like to preempt this discussion by reminding our commissioners and the public that in previous years, we as a commission were working on a calendar of events that would come like on a monthly basis, and Vice Chair Vignola used to manage that calendar last year, but previous to that, we had a former commissioner also doing that with regards to the events and activities that the commission would consider participating. And so I think that what I would love is to have a conversation with all of you about your thoughts on how do we create a new calendar of events for 2025, being instead of being reactive, perhaps being a little proactive about the kinds of things that we've all participated in the past and things that you'd like to participate in this year. And so that would be kind of like my desired outcome to think about. What's the year ahead, and we're just coming back a long hiatus. And yeah, we need to think about what's the main work with regards to activities and the likes for the year 2025. So I'm gonna open it up to commissioners. Anyone who'd like to start the conversation and your thoughts, you're welcome.
Perhaps we could do 2 things this evening. One, we have a list of dates that would correspond with the second Monday of each month. If we can confirm these dates work for our collective group and finalize the dates, and then from there, then determine what we'd like to accomplish each month. That would be helpful to me as the staff that supports the group, so I can make sure that our resources are available for each of these meetings.
So this is this one page, right?
That's correct.
Great. Yeah, let's use this. Go ahead, Commissioner.
So Jeremy, I think. For me, I'll speak for me. The schedule of our human rights regular meetings. Every Monday except for August.
That's correct.
I think the broader discussion we have to start thinking about is in terms of what we want to plan for accomplishing and what kinds of community outreach, for example, we want to do. Yeah, I don't know how other commissioners feel, but I think part of my hesitation on taking on too many initiatives right now is that we are not at full capacity, full staff. We have 2 vacancies, and I think. I don't know. The status of Commissioner Cleary. In terms of whether we will ever see him again. But that would be 3 vacancies. I think. Challenging for this commission to. Engage in events when we have 6 commissioners. Right, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know how other people feel, but. The only specific event I'd like the commission to consider participating in is the Organized Neighborhoods of Palm Springs annual picnic and community expo on March 22nd, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
And if you'd like to participate, I do have the application right here.
I already have.
Oh, wow. One step
So,
ahead.
It just needs a signature on it. But until the commission approves participation, I didn't wanna. There's no fee because we're a city department commission. But before I send it in, I wanna make sure that that somebody's from the Human Rights Commission, other than myself, is gonna be there, I think.
Yeah.
Last time, I think it was Chair Loyola and myself, maybe, in the park. We are given a table and 2 chairs.
Last year it was Rimas in
Were you?
Yes,
Okay, previous years, you,
yes, correct.
so I mean, it would be nice to have 2 commissioners there. I'm fine going. I think Commissioner Rinke said she might be able to
I
attend.
will be.
I'm gonna be bouncing from table to table. I'll be there for another organization, so maybe another commissioner.
Mhm.
If you're available on March 22nd, could attend.
I can attend.
It's in the Ruth Hardy Park. The only thing is I don't recall that we have a canopy.
We do,
Do we have a canopy?
yes, we bought one,
So we don't get burned in the sun.
yes.
We'll need the, who has the canopy?
I have it in my garage.
You have the canopy. You know how to set it up?
I do.
Okay. So. But other than that, I'm not sure of what, I can't think of what other kinds of community outreach we want to do. At this point, until we fill those 2 vacancies.
Mhm.
And I don't know the process for filling those 2 vacancies, except. The
That's gonna
last
be
I heard was
That's
it
gonna be
would.
part of the municipal code.
Well, there was discussion, the last city council meeting about all of the city council members. Interviewing and selecting and appointing members to this commission. I don't know where that went. But my suggestion would be, if appropriate, would be for the chair to submit a request directly to Mayor DeHart, requesting that the council take this action sooner rather than later.
Mhm.
Unless Jeremy feels it should go from him to city manager Styles, but I think it's really gonna be important for us to get at least 2 more commissioners. And then have a discussion of what we realistically wish to accomplish in 2025.
Mhm.
So I would ask them at some point and make a motion to go forward with the Organized Neighborhoods
Mhm.
of Palm Springs Picnic and Community Expo, because I think that's easy for us to
Yeah.
take on. At least it'll get our face out there again. People will recognize we're there, but
Yeah.
we have Commissioner Remus willing to participate. I'll be there. Commissioner Ranky will be there. We can pull that off easily.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vice Chair. Other commissioners, comment?
I think that the Human Rights Commission should commit to attending the Harvey Milk breakfast. I think that's very important as a commission. I think that's we can also add that to the list of things that we can commit to.
That takes place sometime in, that takes
It's
place in November. Is it November?
I don't know the date on that.
I think it was March or April.
Yeah.
I think it's spring, sort of season, but I think we should be there and a game or whatever we did. Because that is major human rights.
Thursday.
It's Thursday.
It was May 9th.
May 9th.
So yeah, that would be coming up if we want to participate. We want to get a table or last time we piggybacked up.
Yeah, backed up.
Commissioner Warren.
And that's gonna be. School budget, which is. Because. When we get there, we'll talk about the stipend we used to have and how the city is gonna help us kind of build this budget.
Certainly.
Because it shouldn't be. Well, thank you so much. You're welcome. For sponsoring it last year, but. This should be something that the city should be. And we'll definitely build it in the budget, but yes, Harvey, breakfast, very important.
So, I just wanted to mention, when I got on the commission, I very much like. Hugo's, vision of the commission as far as identity and. Being seen. So. I think it's important to keep that. It's simple, but we need to be out there being commissioned. So if we could operate under a framework of visibility. It gives us a good foundation to decide what we're gonna represent.
David, thank you for that comment. Laura, do you have any thoughts?
I agree entirely, but I was thinking along the lines, again, projecting forward when we're fully staffed. That we have, maybe we're aligned with various human right activities. And that we attend activities that are part of what we choose to be more active in. And as I mentioned before, like homelessness, so being present at some of the homeless nonprofits. And some of the like Wall in the Desert luncheons, that kind of thing. But that would be an individual activity. Totally dovetailing into what you have to say. But I can't think of any other general events that we should all attend outside of the parades, which you had us do, and I think that's important.
Yes.
May I suggest something, for example, what she just said, for sure, the Pride Parade in November, I know it's November.
Absolutely.
I think it's really important that we're gonna have, I hope we don't have more incidents of thing but with the administration that's coming in, I think it's gonna weigh heavy on this commission if we don't address the issue of tracking hate crimes. And I don't know, I think the city's responsibility is to track hate crimes. And there's hate crimes are not reported to the police because they don't want, whoever experiences, unfortunately, they won't go to the police for a variety of reasons. So where do we fit within this?
That was part of the discussion at the. Council, and that was one of the things that they stated quite clearly that they did not want us to be repetitive. And they felt that hate crimes fell knocks with the police and they're doing a really good job, and they really did, they're quite adamant that they really did not want us to do that. How those ones that are perhaps people are afraid to go to the police, or they don't, how those are handled, or how do they even become visible, or how do you have an area of some place where people are comfortable enough to do that? I don't know.
Well, I think
That
the
is-
conflict
There
is.
were two things, they didn't want to do meetings, and they didn't want. Quite strong.
Okay, I think it's gonna come back to bite. Maybe, and
So I think we put in consideration in this particular issue with hate crimes. And part of our mission as education. Is as we go out into these community activity and events. that we help spread the word about the difference between hate crimes and hate speech, which is sometimes considered, interchangeably, and it's not. But also providing the public with information about, like, where, how do you report a hate, an act of discrimination? What are the instruments at your disposal to do that? And so that's something that I think collectively as a commission, we need to learn ourselves with guidance from council and city staff, so that we can direct folks through the right channels.
Maybe the differentiation between the commission and police can be hate crime and hate speech. Although, it becomes very difficult to. kind of watch what they do.
It's a very fine line, and it's a very important thing that we need to educate the public.
But we also want to be supportive of police because they are making a great effort to change the way they're viewed in our city, and I think, Chief Mills is doing a great job with that. I think, we definitely don't want to hit his way either, I think that's important. We trust the police and we have confidence in their ability to keep us all safe.
Carla?
Oh, I think they.
I just could, I had an idea, speaking, that perhaps we could look at planning a collaborative event with the police on this topic and hold it in the 2025 along the chair's educate the community as to what tools are available for reporting hate crime. So we're not taking on being an entity to which you report, but our role is to make available the information about how to do it and properly and why it's important to do it and what's done with the information. So maybe it's something we could plan it out and engage with the police on their schedule. I think they'd be receptive to co-hosting
Yes.
a community forum, for example.
Yes.
And
That's an excellent idea, but I just have a question. I believe, just personally, that a lot of hate speech is probably being amplified through the media, the social media. Yeah, and how do you can remain anonymous and you can say all kinds of terrible things. And how does that fit into the whole hate speech discussion outside of education, including forum?
Then we brought in speakers and made people to address these issues at a higher level, or is that?
That was exactly where I was headed.
Okay.
If we're planning our agenda here month by month, why not pick a month, right? I recommend picking a month, and I can invite the police chief to come in and give a presentation on this very topic. And perhaps that's the time when we can determine how do we collaborate with one another, carry sort of each other's mission forward. And that's the time when perhaps we can talk about further collaboration, or what are the difference, what police, what do you handle, HRC, what should we handle, and make sure no one's stepping on anyone's toes. Certainly.
I mean, years ago, we did the bullying. We invited subject matter experts, both the local community throughout California. We had it at the convention center. It would be nice to have a similar symposium on this, which is the panelists. Invite.
And I think you represented with something about surveillance, social media surveillance, and who does that and how do they do it? So what's our?
But I like Jeremy's idea of having you first come, then we can bounce ideas. And then we come up with maybe a draft program for the fall of 2025. People are back at school, and people with snowbirds are back. Nobody will attend anything.
So,
So I would even go a little bit further and, part of the work that I can envision the solution to is engaging with and inviting organizations to join us at our meetings and provide us with presentation about their services, their resources, what do they do. I started this thought last year, we should have conversations with Equality California, which by the way is hosting an event with the center at the pavilion tonight. And it's happening as we speak. And my thinking is we should have organizations like Equality California, the ACLU, and other important organizations who are already dealing with a lot of these issues that have the resources, they have the team and the staff, they have the procedures in place to deal with things like hate crimes and others. To come in and do a formal presentation with us and for us to ask them, how can this commission amplify the work that they're doing so that we're not trying to duplicate things as a small body of work that serves this community and this wonderful city, but to bring these resources at a local, at the state, at the federal level, at the national level, say, this is who we are, this is what we do. This is how you get in touch with us, and this is how we can help this community. And for us to ask, what can we do as a commission for human rights to help you amplify and let our residents know that you exist, that if you're experiencing LGBTQ hate speech or God forbid, immigration issues or something like that, that there are organizations that devote themselves to raise funds, to manage these programs, and to provide the help and the resources that people need. That, in my mind, is probably something more actionable. And yes, we can have a chief of police come in and one of those presentations, like what is the City of Palm Springs Police Department can do to help us get the word out and say, hey, we have these things in place.
There was, if I may, apparently was hate speech occurred in the last couple of days where the center, the LGBT center was tagged with hate speech. That's, if somebody approaches me and says, what are you guys doing about that? I mean, it kind of puts us in a strange position if we know somebody that's gonna ask us about human rights. And what position do we take? I mean, or do we?
Well, hate speech is protected speech.
Yeah.
We should be very clear on that.
But tagging a building is a crime.
Mhm.
Tagging a building? Not a crime.
Again, that would be a belief.
Tagging the building would be the crime, and that's what you would turn over to the police department, whereas the speech itself is
So we-
protected.
Comment. Regarding human. We just deal with our visibility.
Yeah.
Is that's sort of what we are? Okay.
Well,
But I think the chair's suggestion of inviting and groups that have much more resources and expertise is a good one, and perhaps if I could suggest that, I don't know if this task for our staff liaison or one of us should take it on, but obviously you have to contact those organizations and say, for example, are you available to come on this date? Maybe we could put an organization to a date
Yes.
and reach out to maybe each one of us. There's 6 of us. If we each take one date and try to find one organization and find out when they're available to come to this meeting.
If you could
That would be the
provide
first
us with a
step.
list of those organizations,
So
it sounds like you're very familiar with.
that's something that can come organically. Of course, I'd love to put together a list of organizations that I think would be very, very useful for this. We have a schedule. And so, and we have the element of the presentations. And that slot in our agenda should be it. And maybe all of it leads to one of these community town hall events in the fall. Where representatives of these organizations come together and then we invite the public to join us, and then the public asks questions. And representatives talk to the public, and that would be something that I would love to see even included in the budget.
Are we open to remote meetings? So if we get the ACLU that says yes, but I can only participate via
Yes,
Zoom,
sir.
are we open to that?
Sure.
And if Zoom, maybe we have two organizations presenting on particular thing.
I think we have to be somewhat cautious of not to dilute things to the point. Basically, wind up doing nothing. You know, and I think that's very easy to do. You know, human rights is a very broad spectrum, and I think that, you know, in order to be, if we want to have an effect, we really sort of have to focus on a few things that we can actually accomplish, rather than try to be able to things.
We go back time and time and time and time again, and all this time we weren't really to the point of education. What can we do to bring the information to the public in which forms? How do we do it in person when we're out there?
Having us be a platform for organizations that are involved in human rights as a sounding board, does that. I think that gives a higher level of visibility. You know, get covered. Folks, for example, I'll say this is a matter. And for us to pick one or two things that we want to educate people to a greater extent, say that in a symposium or something like that. You know, might be the most effective start.
I think perhaps a good approach is to figure out. Like, I think what you were suggesting perhaps, Commissioner Greer, is if we know what the topic is we want to attack on a particular month, then that would kind of drive which organization we would reach out to see if we could engage with them and partner. So if April 14th, we want to focus on homelessness, well then there's a group of organizations we'd reach out to. We wouldn't go to Equality California to talk about homelessness necessarily. We'd try to get a different organization that's has on their plate homelessness issue.
But remember, if homelessness, we are looking at homelessness from a human rights position. So we don't want to muddy the waters by having, you know, Martha's here and the people that are doing services. No, because that's a whole different. Eric, so how do we focus in on exactly what we do? Peace.
We do have a staff person that heads up the homeless.
Litigation center.
And
Yeah, but remember, that's.
he's fantastic.
You're wonderful, but it is, that's
Could
the
he come in
service of
and-
homelessness. That's not the human rights issue.
Well, that the underlying human rights that you homelessness has to do with healthcare, being a right, having shelter, having a place to stay, a shelter being a right. I think there's a lot of underlying social determinants of health that are part of human rights that are really
I think that's how you have to frame the report. Make it clear.
Yes. Opening up huge area rather than trying something that they really get around it. I think we have to be cautious.
Well, I think part of this though is deploying the resources of those other organizations to expand human rights. So it's not only us having them come and give expertise, but it's them also helping us understand how we can better embrace human rights into various populations. In various, you know, in addition to the LGBTQ.
Sure.
Yeah, healthcare.
We have seniors, youth, we have veterans, we have the homeless. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Again, to your point, we don't want to dilute our
Yes,
attention. We need to focus on specific areas.
Well, I think there are different ways. Everything we can go into executive session.
So maybe is for us to kind of think about that. Of course, I'd be happy to put together a list of organizations that I think would be great to invite. And we can look at this agenda and say, where can we have? Maybe in the fall, we have like a town hall event.
Do we want to try to get something for February 10th?
Yes.
Or is that too soon?
Well, we
Should,
I think you should get something to February 10th, or else we're just going to be meeting for the sake of meeting. That's likely the easiest thing for me to coordinate within a month would be to have Chief Mills or his team. I can take that on.
he's not.
So I'm sure someone from his team could be available. We can get, I'm fairly confident we can get somebody.
That's what we discussed in the municipal code.
Have to do with
Recruit.
So, yeah, I think that's the February, it's kind of clear.
So I have the calendar itself. We're happy with the calendar. February 10th, I'll get someone from the police department to attend to discuss hate crimes and hate speech, how they overlap and how the HRC can get involved. March still isn't that far behind. Could we pick a topic for March? And then that'll get us on a schedule of always being 2 months in advance.
Really easy, I mean, we have to reach, to do our own reach and. ECU, American Civil Liberties Union, will deal with things like, deportations and litigation.
They do. I mean, do you have a connection with the quality? I mean, I do, if you want me to reach out to the availability for them to present.
Yeah.
March 10.
Yeah.
To this commission, focusing on human rights,
Mhm.
but it'll obviously be more in line with their
In
work in the
yeah.
LGBTQ.
And I already started a brief conversation with Mike Thompson from the center, who's co-hosting this event with Equality California tonight. And I've asked if we could be introduced to folks at Equality California. I've also learned that council members sit in some of the boards of Equality California, so it'd be easier for us to make those connections.
There are two conflicts I see on the calendar. Jeremy, October 13th, Columbus or
Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Yes.
Probably would have to move. We wouldn't be meeting on that date. I don't know what protocol is. Do we move it to the?
So that's
Monday
really,
or-
that's really at the pleasure of the commission. You have a couple of options. You could cancel the meeting altogether. You could say, hey, Jeremy, find another date that works with the room and I can come back at the February meeting and say, hey, does this work for the team? That might be the easiest thing to do, to task me with finding a substitute date and time.
And then I think November. I think is okay. Celebrating.
11th.
So yeah, I think it's just October 13th.
We haven't seen.
If you can get back to us.
I'll report back at the February meeting and provide some dates, times, locations for a meeting to replace the October 13 meeting. I will give it a good effort.
But it can't be Wednesday because that would conflict.
Council meetings.
Okay.
So we're good on the organized neighborhood thing. I can
Yes.
understand.
Yes, we definitely want
Put
to
it on your calendar. Everybody.
If I could ask one more kind of probative question here. Our meetings are scheduled at 5:30 PM and the city council, when they were talking about moving their meetings to Wednesday, also talked about exploring or giving boards and commissions the ability to discuss changing their meeting times. Are we comfortable with 5:30? Does it work for the group, or do we want to have a discussion of a different time?
Well. 4:30, 5 o'clock.
I support the team, so you tell me what works for you and we'll try to make it work.
I think
I agree.
This schedule is very objective for me. Now he's on with me, I have no flexibility, so I'm not too hung on for one particular time or another. But I really would like for the entire commission to be able to, this new schedule to work with any kind of other activities.
I guess my only concern with going earlier is its impact on the ability of the public to attend if they're working, right? Anybody's working, might be working till 5 p.m. and then therefore could not attend this meeting. and
Or
be
they
there in
can, or the
person.
public can attend who wants to make a speech or a comment, they just start at 5:30. To give them a little bit more flexibility, more time to attend.
You could move public comment later in your agenda. If you were to start at 5 o'clock and allow public comment at the end of the agenda.
That might be,
That would be a compromise, but also give the public the opportunity to join and provide there. They'll still be able to do that via Zoom as well.
That's correct, as long as they pre-register. So am I hearing correctly? We would like to explore 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Starting at
It won't start in council is going to make a motion likely at this next council meeting to give us the authority to do this.
Mhm.
So as soon as we get their authority, I can jump on it to make it happen probably at the March meeting. So February 10th, let's still plan on 5:30.
Okay. So we'll already come over it. Okay. The last couple of things is, in addition to the parades, in 3 years ago, we participated in Black History Committee event, which I think we need to go back to. If the Filipino festival takes place, and I don't know any details about the Filipino festival. If that happens this year, I think that would be a great event also. to Take part of.
Okay,
There's a day of remembrance for LGBT or transgender victims. Which happens one evening closer to the end of the year. So really, it's like a visual type of event. Those are the ones that come to mind.
so I think what I can do, if it would be helpful to the board, is put together a list of all the things that you've brought forward today. I can bring it to our February meeting. We can, I guess, in essence, bless the list. That'll allow us to sort of beef up the calendar, and we have our calendar date, but I can also fill in, this is the Black History Month parade, here's the Pride Parade. So we have a better understanding of what the entire year looks like for the group.
Yes.
I have a question. So, when we have a presentation, like if, Andy Mills or his delegate can, present, what kind of, time frame do we put in, how does that agenda? What is it, a 15-minute, 20-minute Q&A?
It doesn't really cover, its presentations are really. And we can have a conversation.
Yes, are you asking if we should have other things on the agenda?
Yes.
That really is, I'm gonna turn it back to the commission and ask, do you want the meeting focused solely on that topic? So we could sort of have a beefy hour and a half meeting, or do you want to conduct other business at the same time? And if so, what other business is there at this juncture?
council usually has presentation. But they're in conjunction with
A staff report? or
staff report,
item?
part of that calendar thing. But it's not, their agenda is not just presentation. I don't know if council limits the time on a presentation. Never
They
quite
do
sure.
not, other than the direction, please make it brief.
Brief.
But in this, I don't know if I would
Usually
say
it's-
have it under presentation or have it as a discussion item, because you're going to want to engage with the police department, I'm assuming, and have
Yes.
sort of a back and forth, so it's probably better suited as a, maybe the singular discussion item on the agenda.
Council engages the presenter when they do presentation.
Yes, but you don't get the same sort of robust back and forth.
I think we could do a discussion / presentation, but also have maybe some additional items. on the agenda.
We're gonna have some house. Keeping items. We haven't even gotten to the topic of the community awards. So we're gonna have things that we will have to include in the agendas. For sure. But I like that idea of, let's make it, the central point is the presentation and the discussion that follows.
Okay.
For the commission.
Direction received.
Yeah. Budget. Can we move on to the next item? We're good?
Yes.
Yes. 8B, budget. We don't have a budget. We never had a budget. We had a stipend. For a few years, we had a stipend of $1,000. And this year, we would like to really have a budget paid for things like the town hall event, the party meal breakfast, and other types of activities. And so, I could talk from my background on building budgets for corporations and all other organizations, but this is a very specific process that the city follows to build their own budgets, because we're gonna have to approach them with, this is the budget that we think we'll need for 2025. And the city will have to say yea or nay, we approve these items or we don't approve the items. We don't have the keys to the funds. And as a reminder, we do this work as volunteers, we're not staff, we're not employees, we don't get paid. So, Jeremy, why don't you help us a little bit with some background understanding how budgets get built and how we can build our own budget?
Certainly. And you, Chair, put me in a little bit of an awkward spot here in that I have to step on your toes and say, actually, we are a budgeted commission. That as I did a little bit of research, I found out that we are budgeted this year with $3,000. There's been no expenditures from the current fiscal year through the end of June 30. We do have $3,000 that we can use for the commission. Now, I just did a budget presentation this morning where we're now building the next 2-year budget for the city. So that'll be adopted in June. That'll take us through the next 2 fiscal years. So now's the time to start thinking July 1 forward. Now, the directions, sort of the marching orders that we got were to be a little bit more conservative in our budgets going forward. So on things that don't have specific line items, we need to come forward with very specific line item requests. So I want to participate in a parade, it's going to cost $200. I want to host a table at Harvey Milk, that's going to be $1,000. We have to spend a little bit of time really identifying line by line what we want that budget to be, so that when I present it to the executive budget committee, I can get buy-in to then submit it into the larger city council budget. So is money available? Yes, it likely won't be as robust as $3,000 in the following years, but I think there is likely money available if we can sort of clearly articulate what those expenditures will be.
So knowing that we have $3,000 and then July 1st, 2025, moving forward, the new budget allocation and plans will be adopted or presented or discussed. If we do have that, and for the commissioners, if we can identify, of the events that we talked about, we know Harvey Milk will cost about $1,000. We know that Black History Committee event is gonna cost us about $800. We could come up with some of this and say, this is how we would like to intend to use the $3,000 that we currently have. And then anything above and beyond becomes part of that line item request that we would like to do. There's like, love it if we can do a community convention center, when we have representatives from representatives, that's several $1,000s, right?
But I think there's 2 parts. how do we wanna spend the $3,000 Jeremy said we have?
Jeremy didn't say spend all $3,000.
Spend all of it.
Okay.
That's gonna.
Jeremy did not say that.
That is from day to the end of June. End of June. We first figure out and submit.
That's correct.
requests For expenditures out of that 3,000.
That is
We
correct.
have to-
But more
we have to
importantly.
spend-
we
No,
don't have to spend it.
we have to spend-
no.
To
Does
spend
it,
it,
is it carried?
does not carry you. So that's two parts. There's something we want to do between now and June 30, 2025. What will it cost? And we have to let our staff liaison know, can you set aside or part of that 3,000? Make sure we can do the event. I think
It has to be spent.
it has to be spent, but we would like to spend it,
Okay.
right? But more importantly, I think we have to think beyond that. From July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026. What things might we want to do? What will they cost so we can submit a proposed draft budget to city manager to advocate, council approve.
That's correct.
Appropriate. So it's really two pieces.
Mhm.
A great, I mean, it'd be great, we have the potential to use some of that $3,000 now. But certainly,
So we can start looking at these events and the registration, things like, that. We can upfront the registrations. We should have our tables.
right, so we already know we want to do that, so that we can reach out, figure out. What did it cost last year? Probably is gonna be 10% increase this year. So we'll figure out what that number is, we'll set aside.
The table,
The table.
I made a big donation.
Well, that's what we-
I made a $5,000 donation. I don't know how much went to what.
But I think $5,000 for the then.
I can research that to figure out what that will cost.
Do you want us to
Yes,
put together a document with a budget document, basically, with some numbers,
yes.
circulate it with the commission or send it just to you? Or how do you want to?
We have time to develop the budget for 25, 26. So again, two components. One, we need to figure out what we would like to do now. And I think the Harvey Milk discussion or the Harvey Milk item is a legitimate expenditure for the current fiscal year. Then maybe one of our meetings coming up, maybe the March 10, one of these meetings, kind of a secondary conversation is budget, and it'll have given the commission a month or two to think about, hey, this is important to me. Let's figure out if this is something that fits in with the bigger plan.
So I think knowing this information. Maybe we could put this on our agenda for next month to continue this budget discussion, both in terms of. What we want to do between now and June 30, 2025, will it cost anything? So we can get that into the pipeline now. And then broader think about. What we want to do starting July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026, and any kind of financial requirements that we might have. Let's start building a proposed budget
So,
request.
you go, if you could, then circulate those organizations that you have affected. You'd be very helpful as we think about that budget going forward. Because besides registration, for events, it's not clear to me what kind of costs would be built into some of these events. Just, I'd like to be educated.
Well, the only one question, maybe Jeremy, you could help me get my head around it. Things like if we wanted to produce a booklet about the Human Rights Commission, is that something we have to budget for? Or is that just something the city will do out of some other pot of money?
You would need to budget for it, and between this group and me as a staff liaison, we probably have the resources to pull it together. It would be a printing cost.
Yeah. So it would be, like, if you were building this, it would be like, we need certain amount of money for a promotional item that's printed. And then it's like how many copies and, you know, you just kind of
Yes.
figure that out, that piece, you might maybe get a quote. And use that as a base for.
Okay. So think about things like that too,
Okay.
like in the past, we bought the table and chairs. So we had something to sit at,
Then we have a canopy.
we have a can, I don't know if we need anything else at this point, but. I think we did find that if,
Some
when
of
we
our
go to
banners,
community events, if we don't have.
some of our banners need, we need new banners.
Maybe we need new banners, those, maybe we should. Maybe consider requesting sooner rather than later, especially if we're gonna go out with the community. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that, it's great. Jeremy, would you please continue with item 8C, the budget request for conference registration?
So 8C, I think, falls in nicely to 8B, but I'm actually going to ask Vice Chair Vignolo if you'd like to. It's really your request to the commission, so I'll turn it over to you and see if we can get a motion on that going forward.
Sure. So this was following up on the last meeting.
I believe so.
Right, I'm requesting the commission's approval to. Then it'll be $366.34. For me to register for the World Pride 2025 Human Rights Conference. June 4 to June 6, so prior to June 30, 2025. In Washington DC, I'm already attending, but this Human Rights Conference is on those 3 days, and I feel it would be beneficial. In part because it would be an opportunity to engage with local national entities that deal specifically with human rights and learn from them best practices that could be brought back. And so the only expense to the city and to the Human Rights Commission is this early bird registration from covering lodging and transportation. So that's kind of why it's on the agenda. The commission supports that, then I guess there's a process for me to.
If the commission supports it, we need sort of a first, a second, and then a vote of majority.
Right.
The direction will be to me to submit a request for the formal
$366.34.
$34.
Because I don't want to register for it if this $366.34 is approved, but it seems likely it might be.
I think the only sticking point is that I did some research of other boards and commissions, and the only example I could find of sending commissioners to conferences was on our more quasi judicial bodies like the Planning Commission or the Administrative Appeals Board. Couldn't find things like Parks Commission or Sustainability Commission being sent to conferences. Not to say it can't happen. That's just the research of what I uncovered.
But what's the process though from your, if this commission said, yes, we think this is a good thing for us to do, would you put it together and submit it to whom?
Yes, I will put it together and I'll submit it to the city manager.
Okay, so he's the one who decides whether to sign off on it?
Correct.
Well, the first step is, do you think this is worth it? I guess. I would like to do this. I would like the commission's backing to do this.
Well, I'd like to open to any commissioner's thoughts on this matter.
Useful, especially as we're moving forward with this expanded vision of calling on the expertise of others in the community are nationally effective.
And specifically with human rights,
Yes,
dealing with human rights issues.
yes, yes.
And the visibility stuff and all that, it's good.
That's fine, someone needs to make a motion so we can discuss it further.
Well, I'll make the motion
Mhm.
that the Human Rights Commission approved my request to attend this World Pride 2025 Human Rights Conference in Washington, DC. At the expense of $366.34.
I second.
Let's check in the language. The next one, what the 34 cents is for.
Well, it's $350 plus the fee of $60.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Now let's enter this.
I'm fine.
I think we're all fine with it.
So my only thing.
And I will recuse myself from the discussion.
So I have a few thoughts about it, and the first one obviously is, what is the outcome, right, what we expect? Participating in a conference is great, learning about what other people do is great. Bringing the information back is wonderful, what would be the concrete outcome of that participation with regard to? We expect you to come and do presentation, training, you share what you learn. What is that expected outcome? First and foremost, and also for the record, if we agree that this is something we want to support, I also want to go on record to say that if we do that for Commissioner Vinolo, that then sort of opening the door for other commissioners to say, hey, I want to do this. So. And so we need to set a procedure for doing this rather than it's a great opportunity. And I do this, let's all get behind it. So we're setting a very important precedent so that other commissioners may see that, hey, we like to do something similar for other types of things. Just putting those two very important things on the table for discussion.
Experiment. The direction that we expect to comprehensive and valuable presentation to come out of this. And then afterwards we can evaluate whether what we call it was good use.
You know, we'd like to say that, I think that's an excellent point, Commissioner Loyola. It's building a process around this, so we don't get sort of caught into, you know, why are we spending this? We have a process about how we do this and maybe a threshold of how much we designate for conferencing for each commissioner, which you can also build into the budget. Reason would that be, but I understand that building a process such similar to the community service.
Can we include, say, on a case by case basis? You know, to fund these things so that it's case by case instead of setting a precedent. That it's just language.
Yeah, I guess my point is, let's see whether it's a valuable endeavor before we put a lot of time building processes and systems around something that we might think is really cool.
Or there might be some things that yes. Or, you know, communications with these group that we made here.
Absolutely.
And that will be shown in the presentation.
Yeah, that would definitely be an added value and that would support $300 expenditure.
That's great.
Yeah, we could budget. That's wonderful.
If I could speak, we won't vote on this, but. So I do like the idea of I think any request to use any fund to attend training conferences by any commissioner should be reviewed. That's totally makes total sense. Which is why I wanted to bring it forward to the commission before going to Jeremy to ask for the $366.30.
But we are setting a precedent.
But I think the idea of maybe capping it down the road is a good one as well. But we can, if Commissioner Greer's point, see if you like what I bring back and it's worth to build a process. That coming back, that presentation wouldn't be until probably July 14th.
But again,
Earliest.
I'm spending, I'm going to say, allocating funds for the education and networking abilities for all the commissioners sounds like a very worthwhile endeavor.
Conversely, we could use the meetings for training opportunities by bringing in one of the outside groups to come in and train the entire group. So I think you can do it two different ways, not discounting what you're doing,
No,
but there's
that's a good idea.
multiple ways of getting to the
And
end
part of what
result.
I'm hoping to do, because there'll be so many groups and organizations attending this, is to make those connections. To your point, and try to get them to, hey, who doesn't want to come to Palm Spring? Especially in the winter time, and while you're here, could you come to the Human Rights Commission and
Sure.
do a training or do a presentation?
We're doing via Zoom.
But you gotta get in the room to have the discussion, and I thought this was a great opportunity for us to not only get in that room and have those, start building those relationships, but to get our name and face out there nationally and internationally. And to promote Palm Springs as a promoter of human rights, but we need to work with you up there, and we can do this together, so.
Okay.
That's my piece.
Any further comments on this? No?
Just need a vote.
Let's take a vote. Those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
I,
Can you make sure you note that I?
I have noted.
It's in 34 cents. Thank you for that.
Let me know when I can register.
All right, so let's move now to more discussion, and this is a good one. And it's going to be 9A with an update on the municipal code revision. Right now, we all have had the opportunity to read and make our notes about the chapter 2.45 of the Human Rights Commission in the city code. Further to that, staff, Jeremy, thank you for doing this, provided recommendations and suggestions on the language, what to remove. You see that in the document with a lot of red and stricken text and other sections that we include. So the way I thought, because this is a very lengthy document, we really thought that we could have or construct this conversation would be first and foremost by recognizing that the lion's share of this particular chapter is heavily based on domestic partnerships. That's one of the largest topics that's in the document, and many of the sections of chapter reference domestic partnerships. I presume that a lot of the text that it was stricken was thinking we're gonna remove domestic partnerships from this particular chapter. Was that the thinking?
Actually, the text before you leaves the domestic partnership language as is. That I went back and forth and thought, should we strike it? Should we not strike it? The discussion at the commission level and at council level, no one really addressed what to do with the domestic partnership. So there's really no harm in leaving it there. I've consulted with the city clerk's office. We have a little over 100 registered domestic partners in the city, but I found that most of the people that have registered, it happened many, many years ago. In the last 5 years, there's been 2 registrations. So it sort of is a thing of the past, but there are existing registrants that are on file with the city clerk's office. All the stricken language, the majority of it deals with mediation and reconciliation process that we heard the council, as Commissioner Greer pointed out, say that that is no longer within the purview of the commission. So that's been stricken. If I can go a little bit further, as I was sharing with Commissioner Horn before we got started here, we go back in time, we had the council tell us, hold up, let's take a moment, let's reassess what we're doing. We spent a lot of time talking about what we've done as a commission. We looked at other neighboring jurisdictions, West Hollywood, San Diego, San Francisco, city and county, city of New York. We said, hey, we want to mimic some of these large organizations. I've gone through and matched up where we're at currently, what other organizations have done. We're very, very similar. We have a lot of overlap. What you see added are a lot of the social services components that we've talked about without taking away the human rights component. At the end of the day, sort of my conclusion is that you had a pretty good ordinance and it gave you quite a bit of to do what you're talking today about doing, absent any discussion of the human services nonprofit. So that's been added in here, but the majority of the text that you already had is still here.
And you know, when I was doing this reading back and forth, that's the kind of thinking. So, your own personal experiences with it. But having like two registrations in the last couple of years for domestic partnerships, to me kind of signal a couple. So one, a lot of couples moved to get married when became the law of the land. And two, it's very likely that a lot of other people thought that now marriage is the only way, and so no one needs to be a domestic partner. So that kind of went away with thinking, we don't really need to think about it, it's just what we married.
One caveat I would point out as I was reviewing the list of domestic partner registrants is that it's not always same sex. There are some opposite sex couples that still avail themselves to domestic partnerships.
And when I was doing this exercise and looked at my notes and everything, it's like, you know, there's a few references with male and female. But something that we're not considering now all of our programs in various forms that we want to protect. And so in that same thinking, it's like maybe there's a couple of maybe people that want to get together and form a domestic partnership, and the language is not there. So that was something that kind of jumped at me. If folks don't know that they can apply for and register as a domestic partnership now, without having to go to the route of marriage, maybe that's something that the commission really takes on and say, hey, folks, did you know that you don't necessarily need to get married, you can register a domestic partnership? Some real benefits of that. You don't have to do same sex, you don't have to do women, you can do whatever your pronouns happen to be. That was something that's just being.
What occurred to me though is that these are legal rights. Why is that in the Human Rights Municipal Code, Human Rights Commission? I didn't see anything on domestic partnership in the other California, Southern California city charters that I looked at. So that's why I was a little bit surprised. A lot of the determination of domestic partnership, this is like legally defined rights.
So domestic partnership is defined by the Secretary of State. On a legal perspective, my understanding of what was done here was a very strong statement was made about domestic partnerships and the city's support of domestic partnerships. But in terms of legal rights that are conferred, that's not happening here. The legal rights are conferred by California state law. This is not giving you something different or meatier.
So are you being redundant here? Is domestic partnership now a source of discrimination? You don't see it mentioned in any of the human rights, what's it, United Nations Universal Human Rights criteria. So I mean, it just seems to me, from my point of view, in 2024, that this really is not part of what we do or what we are. And that we're not. Are people lodging discrimination complaints about the ability to be domestic partners? I can see back when being in healthcare, domestic, if you weren't a partner or you weren't a family member or a spouse, you couldn't see your loved one. And I can see where all this had a great deal of relevance then, but I'm not sure that I see it now, because it doesn't address the kind of activities we do, from my perspective.
Yeah. I think
Perhaps I'll reach.
I think this.
Areas. I think that the point was. Still are not out there, don't want to. Put it in. Yeah, but do we need this level of?
I think it may behoove us to have the city attorney speak to us specifically on why this language is necessary and why I believe he thinks it should be retained in this code. Because that was my understanding in conversation after the city council meeting, December 12th, about specifically this language in our code. He said, well, he was gonna reach out to some other jurisdictions to see if what they've done in terms of keeping that language in their municipal code, given the advent of same-sex marriage in 2018 federal. But I think really we kind of have to take our direction from the city attorney on this aspect and if it's appropriate to retain it in this chapter.
If I may comment, city attorney has reviewed this. So it is acceptable to leave the language in here. If we want, we've, Vice Chair Vignolo, you've really helped us understand that time is of the essence and we don't want to sort of dawdle too long here. If we make the determination today that we want to strike the domestic partnership language, it's going to take more time to get this on the agenda. I have a deadline of tonight to get it on the agenda for next week's meeting. I'm not saying that needs to drive the conversation, but if we want this to get a first introduction on the next meeting in January, as presented, as absent minor non-substantive changes, this is what we're working
I didn't
with.
know the city attorney.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm super.
yes. Cool. I read this and this is really, really great. I really appreciate all that's been done on this. There's been a lot of work that's been put into this. However, on page 4, I just have one question. Page. Section 1. Under Human Rights Commission created membership powers and duties. So that's page 3.
Okay.
Let's go to page 4. So let's page over.
Yeah.
Okay, just do section D.
Yeah.
Right.
Advising,
Advise and make written recommendations to the mayor, city council, and city manager concerning the development and implementation of programs and practices for the purposes of furthering the objectives of this chapter. Now, my question to you, Jeremy, was this added, make recommendations to the city council on priorities for the development of cities, efforts in human rights, including social programs and issues facing adults?
Yes, that would be a proposed addition.
I think that's fine, but can we possibly consider changing it to the social programs and issues facing adults to demographic of the city? Which would include, of course, older adults. That's my only concern, otherwise. It's important.
I'm actually going to ask Commissioner Rinke on that one because I believe you had brought up the aging population and older adults a couple of times during our prior discussions. So would you feel comfortable that adding, instead of issues facing all demographics of the city is inclusive enough of older adults?
Making sure that older adults are not left out. And I think that's why.
good, including social programs.
Many times in many discussions, all of the kids and that young people, and you leave out older adults. But the reason that was stated that way is to make sure it's inclusive and not, don't forget our elder.
I totally
That's
But
what
I
I
could also say all social programs and issues facing all demographics of the city, including older adults. Yeah, that way it's there for sure.
yeah, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
We're facing older adults and other at-risk populations.
Perfect. That's- It's beautiful.
Under 2.45030 feet. A lot of that needs to go away because it's all the mediation.
Yes,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
something I.
3, 4 need to be stretched.
Yeah.
Good catch, thank
All
you.
the stuff with mediation, you got 2, 3, 4,
3, 4,
4A.
uh, yeah, basically, A and B. So basically 2 through 4 needs to be
Got it.
Which is that?
bumped on the.
Three.
It's actually
We
three.
would be
Okay.
section 2.45.
4, 5.
Oh,
point
3,
C.
0.
Perfect, yeah. Point C.
We
And
can
then
keep
point
C,
C.
we can keep C1, but eliminate C2 through 4. Is that correct? Cool deal, thank you. I've read this 100 times and that didn't register.
Section. 2.5.010 definition. That's like the first page.
Oh, yeah.
Definition. And if we go to item D in there, it says the persons have agreed to jointly responsible for the common care, welfare, and basic living expenses. And that each partner has agreed to provide for the other partner's basic living expenses. So they can provide for herself or himself. That's very specific. I'd love it if we could have a little bit of language of the he, she, they, them. To make it even more inclusive. Other people's sexual identity or none. So that line there, I think needs to be a little more refined with, it's not just male, female, be
Okay,
they, them.
You know, I have a question. You said, the attorney went through this. Are these definitions current? This is from 20, what's it?
the
1990.
definitions are not from the state of California. These definitions are something that I wasn't here at the time, but my understanding sort of evolved,
Okay.
but not specific to what you find on the state's website under the Secretary of State.
Okay.
So they're not legal definitions.
Also. They have the different part, that's I think inclusive.
I think that has to really agree with what the formal definition is, though, into the Secretary of State. I think we have to check back.
Because this is basically the partnership definitions.
No, we're not matching up with the Secretary of State. We've gone a little, don't want to use the word rogue, but the definition of domestic partnership by the Secretary of State is very kind of short and concise. This is much more robust and has a lot of specificity in it.
Other cities, I have seen nothing, see, domestic partnership.
We asked Jeff if it needs to be modified, or we should leave it.
I've asked the question, not my call to make. It's really a call of this body and the city council. So if you'd like to propose that this language is stricken and we just replace it with the definition of domestic partnership from the Secretary of State, that's perfectly acceptable.
What you just.
And
I mean, the council wants to take that.
yeah, I think
Yeah. So work is done, I think I love it, the commission is if we come up with a plan. To talk to the public about, it. Did you know that you can register for the domestic partnership if you're ready to take a larger responsibility of marriage? Because I bet you there's a lot of people here that don't even think about, oh, domestic partnership is still.
Right.
An option.
There are reasons people do it. I have a few items, Jeremy. Want to go first. So section 2.45.030 under paragraph A, creation. What I heard the city council talk about at their November meeting was that members would be appointed by the entire council collectively. So I'm not sure going forward, we would want them to be appointed by the mayor with the approval of the city council. I don't know if that can just be appointed by the city council, the majority of the city. So there's created within the city a human rights commission consisting of 9 members appointed by a majority of the city.
I believe there, if you look at under B1, chapter 206, I'll have to double check, but I believe 206 lays out the way in which boards and commissioners across the entire organization are appointed.
I highlighted
I
that
don't know. It's
because chapter 206 is not in this document.
Yeah, it applies to the entire organization, not just to the
So I
HRC.
did have-
You could just check that.
Yep.
I don't, I think it's a great idea for the entire city council to appoint members to this commission by a majority.
I think, do they not do that now that you have a subcommittee, the mayor and vice
That's
mayor,
how
and
they
then
wanna do
they're
it.
presented to
So
the
I guess that's a
entire
special
council?
And then however they want to do it, you'll have to make it consistent. But I'm just bringing that up. 'Cause I know it came up in their conversation in November. If they. Fortunately, it's the first time I've seen that with all the redlining. Quickly we did, but
It's another option if we want to spend more time reviewing this, that we would bring it back at our February meeting and it would just go to a future council item to amend. That could be possible since we're back to regular duty and taking on regular business.
I just don't get a sense that anything that we talked about is incredibly major. Earth shattering. I think I'm getting the sense that the consensus is that
I think
the language is. This is a very robust.
Let's get it done is what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
changes was discussed tonight. Including the document that you want to feel confident to present the council for the first reading.
Sound good?
So let me know the. We really come up with a lot tighter and a lot.
It'll be very sort of brief and
Yeah.
concise. I think manageable.
I'm conscious of the, is there anything else that they? We don't have to take a vote.
No vote needs to be taken. No vote needs to be taken. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And then 9B is the discussion of the community service award. I would like to ask Commissioners Enrique and to lead this conversation since it will be proposal to put on the community service awards and modifying process.
I have it on my computer. Did you want to start, MJ? And
Well, I made
My microphone.
Sorry, oh. Sorry. I had made the suggestion that perhaps we would want to handle this on a point system. In which we can define, how many points. We should try to keep it as simple as possible, but the candidates that come to us, will have to. The criteria will decide the criteria to ask questions and either give them points or not.
Given the hour, I wonder if it would be better to table this discussion till the next.
Are we going to have a?
But- Well, that's part of it is I'm glad we brought this up because it really ties into the municipal code discussion. Not to me. I think it is going to be and it should be, if we're gonna proceed with a community service award program going forward, I personally would like to see it in the municipal code as a function of this commission. It's not in there now, but I think it should be. I think that was part of the problem in the past years. But that kind of, we don't have to decide the specifics of the process, but I think. I should have mentioned it earlier, but I think. I'd like your, we've done it for years, but nowhere have I been able to find the genesis of it.
Mhm.
And because it created so many problems, I think
Yeah.
it's important that statutorily it be specified in the code that a function of the Human Rights Commission is to conduct a community service award program. That's all it has to say. It doesn't have to go into the specifics, but it puts notice and makes it a requirement of this commission going forward that there will always be a community service award program. That's kind of, Jeremy needs to know that if he wants to finalize the document to present to council. Because I think the new council hasn't weighed in, right? We have two new council members. So it's important for them to have an opportunity to come back. If they saw that in the municipal code draft, they could come back and say, you know what? We don't think this is a good idea.
You know, David, why is this important? to
Why is
put in
it?
the municipal
Because
code?
it puts a stake in the ground that this will be a function that must be performed by the Human Rights Commission by statute. Right now, there's nothing statutorily that requires this commission to do it.
Does it require statute?
Yes,
I
I believe
I
it
think,
does.
I think it says that.
Well, it requires both. It requires both.
That's only one part of the equation. The process is what we really need to engage in discussion. You guys work on a proposal, that's the intention of this particular discussion item was to present the proposal and for us to have a conversation about the proposal. I think that this is obviously a very important item that we need to discuss thoroughly.
I have to agree with David, though, I think that, yeah, in the year or so that I've been here too, it seems to be that's really been the only issue. I think it does require, or it should not really require, but it should demand the statutory confirmation, that really is what the council wants. One of the functions of the commission to be is to make sure that every year we have that award. Maybe they don't. And then in that case, that directs us to a whole different type of discussion about this. But I think that might be a very good jumping off point before we even got into the process. I thought your process was excellent. You worked on, I think that's kind of, that could be easy, you've done a lot of work.
It's about 8 months old.
Yeah, I know, but we certainly can discuss it, but I do think that we really do need that confirmation in order to make the whole discussion valid.
And the only additional thing, I don't think I'm speaking in turn, I did have a conversation with council member Reddy. He's council member, about this topic, because he's in my district and. He's the one that actually gave me the idea that if there's gonna be a community service program, it should be statutorily required of the Human Rights Commission. That's number one, so that's why I'm bringing it up. He then went further and said, if the entire council approves your municipal code revision with that in it, then the commission, in coming up with the process of implementing that program, should think about a few things. And one thing he suggested, which I thought was excellent, that as part of our process, it should be clear that no nominees, no current council members can make a nomination. And I thought, wow, that's
Could I leave the
pretty
dog?
brilliant. You know, we should,
You know, I think it,
I know they can't receive an award.
It should not. And there is a, in the current amended, or the current proposed process, I think it's addressed. Nominee and applicant should not and should nominate applicants. So I think that's addressed fairly clearly.
But at this point, he doesn't think a council member should make an of an individual.
Okay, we can add it into this.
So that was, and I thought that was a great addition to what the work you guys did.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
But certainly possible to have that discussion. Here's my only caveat is that will slow me down because it'll take a couple levels of review. I can get the language in here, but I'll need to get the city attorney and his team. I need to get the city manager. So, okay,
Yeah.
but I will not get it on the next
Fine.
city council agenda.
Okay,
It'll slow us down by a couple of weeks.
But I would just add that in
I think it's important.
under powers and duties of the commission. You can make it, I don't care what number, if you want to add it. at The end,
What section are you looking at?
so I would add. Under 2.45.030, paragraph C, powers and duties of the commission.
Okay, so we
In
decided one
additional,
can stay, so number two could be,
you could change to. The Human Rights Commission shall conduct
a community service.
an annual community service award program,
Mhm.
period. And we'll figure out how to do it, but at least it gets it in the function of the human.
You do have the ability now under your kind of authority for programmatic items. But what you're asking is to make it mandatory, correct?
Make it a mandatory,
Because part of the duties.
because it's gonna then, it has more weight, it puts.
Its powers and duties is really included.
I understand, just making sure I understand correctly.
The council seemed very supportive and wanted, in fact, thought there was merit in doing a community program. This gives them an opportunity to, when they get your document, maybe give us some direction on how to implement it.
It's a little bit of an
Help us
unfunded
define
mandate.
the Process. That's what I'm hoping.
Okay,
It trigger a discussion among five.
Okay.
I'm interested that why the, Councilmember Reddick was saying that the council people should not, except because of the issues that have happened in politics of you get involved. But I wonder if perhaps as part of that, we want to limit the number so that it doesn't water down this so badly. I mean, if we gave,
That attaches.
how many council members have five? Yeah, maybe 5 awards every year or something like that. You know, something we should, I think we should address that as we. Rather than just kind of.
So if I understand- if I understand correctly, we'll start with exploring getting it included in the code.
Yes,
Once we get that task completed, then this body will discuss the work that you two have done in process for implementation. Is that correct?
Yes.
You've got me on my A game today.
Well, no, that's it. Jeremy bringing this and hopefully being able to build it into the.
What's making it different?
revision. But the only thing that we will do obviously is saying that we're gonna put this item on to future agenda for discussion based on when it comes up, the revision of the.
And I'd like to ask the commission one question. As I draft my report, is it safe for me to say there was unanimous approval or consensus by this body in the revisions that we're presenting to the council? Yes,
Yes. Yeah.
With
excellent.
that one or two.
With the additions that we've
The other-
discussed. Okay. But would you prefer majority support? Okay. Excellent, thank
So
you.
we don't have to take.
Yeah. Yeah. You should be thinking about the process.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, we got this initial suggestion as to how we can process this. Commissioner Ricky and I will get together and formulate some questions that we could ask the candidate. Only as a framework to bring to us, and then we can add to them or subtract from them, and then we can just decide on a point system. And so we'll discuss that.
Yeah. One thing that I didn't see, it just as you do this, is that in the past, all the applications were done in. We didn't know who the person who submitted the applications. Anonymous. That was done for the purpose of eliminating bias. Your document, you're suggesting applications and nominations, and I wasn't clear about, okay, one self-nominate, that was something we avoided in the past. Self-serving, like my organization is so great, I want to get a community service award. Or I am involved in, I am a board member of this organization and I'd love to get a good, so that was done specifically for the purpose of eliminating that bias. So there's gotta be a little bit more work on that particular area. We ensure that there is no bias in whatever applications come in or submissions, whatever that is.
No bias in how the commission evaluates it?
Evaluates.
Okay,
Because if you were sitting on the board of a not-for-profit, you could very easily say, I want a not-for-profit to be considered for one of these awards.
The IT department is one of my departments, so when we go live with this, I can have one of my team members create an online portal for applications, so we can collect the name of the individual that's submitting the application, but not present that to the commission for review. So I could have the information, so we collect it, but it wouldn't be available to the commission during the review process. I would know. We could do that, or still collect it not anonymously, but anonymously to the commission. Once a decision has been made, perhaps a subcommittee of the commission could then be tasked with the review. I could meet with whoever the subcommittee is, share the information, and the commission.
What stage do?
Do that review.
I mean, we're the subcommittee, but there could be, two other commissioners. that could be on the-
Then it has to be done.
Huh?
Can't do anything in the violation.
No.
Getting into. Don't even, I did have several questions on your May 13th document. I don't know if you want me to give them to you.
Yeah.
So you can like offline work them.
Yeah.
but one of the things that I have a question about is for-profit organizations and how they fit into community service. Anyway, in differentiating from, your nonprofits, who yes, and
They're for-profit, and they have like a B corporation designation, and they provide some of the profits to social things. I think that could be one thing to consider. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, there's things too, like the hospital, for example, here in town, there's a for-profit entity, and that makes it very difficult to. As you go. Yeah, it makes it.
So we're gonna table this.
Exactly.
And as we table this, we're gonna move on to item 10 of the agenda, which is additional comments and requests from commissioners. Any additional comments and requests from commissioners? Any item 10 of the agenda, commission member comments and requests, any comments or requests from commissioners? if you had something pressing, you'd like to. If not, it's fine, I have one thing to say. Yeah, no? Okay.
Well, I do have one request. I think I made it earlier, but the record, I would like them to formally proceed with trying to get our vacancies filled.
Yeah.
And maybe have a report back at the next meeting on where that stands. And I don't know if we can, I don't know the process, I know that there's, in the code, there are specifics as to. Removal of a commissioner that doesn't attend meetings, I think we need to discuss that in light of Commissioner Clary's absence. But that would set whether we have 2 or 3 vacancies, so I think this. Should be discussed,
Isn't the municipal code very clear
yes.
about,
Mhm.
yeah, about,
The
listing
code is
two
very-
ways, yeah. So, you know, when we enact the municipal code. It's probably on the next agenda item.
Sure. Yeah, I had this very same comments also, but I also, anyone else, any? No? So I just, because we cannot engage with this section with Dr. Yorba's public testimony. Of his request for a letter from the solution to support the project for the center. We were not able to do that because we can't discuss on the. But what I would say is that if you so much feel inclined to do personal letter of support, you're more than welcome to do it. It's part of, individuals. But it's part of the commission. Okay, that's all I have to say. Okay, and without any further comments or requests, I think we're ready to adjourn the meeting. So I need a first and a second to adjourn.
I move to adjourn today's meeting.
Move, accepted, second accepted, any further discussion about adjournment? No? So our commission will adjourn to a regular meeting scheduled on Monday, February 10th, 2025. Thank you so much, everyone. 5:30.
Yeah, 5:30 until I get to move.
Can you send me